Sorry for the delay in getting your video analysis to you, but I like to do that for a lot of my students. And just to give you some homework and some reminders when you're working on your serve, and you should work on your serve this summer. It's an easy thing to practice on your own. So you have this nice start position, good flowing arms in the beginning. You have an abbreviated take-up, kind of a hybrid take-up, which is fine, and the rhythm looks pretty good. You get into this power position, and I think we talked about it, but if you look here, the elbow is a little low, so that's something in the power position. You want to try to get that elbow a little bit higher, get the elbow in line with both shoulders. So you'd like to get the elbow, shoulder, shoulder in alignment. This left arm position is perfect. If you see the way the left arm is shooting upward here, and you have this great stretch in your armpit, that's fantastic. Look how the racket turns here. Typically, those racket strings will face me. This means that you're supinating your wrist or forearm. You're supinating early, and typically the wrist is neutral. Here, the forearm is neutral before you drop the racket. But if you watch closely, as you drop the racket, you get into that point of maximum external rotation, which is around here. Your racket is very well on edge, and you come up on edge. You come up with a good neutral position. So I'm not sure that it's causing you a lot of power loss, but typically players have the strings facing the camera. So I'm talking about this area here. Those strings should face the camera. And I think the main reason that's important here for you is if there is no power loss, you should do it for disguise. Try to get that wrist neutral, because as we discussed, the reason you're turning your wrist here, I don't know if you can see that your wrist is very curled here, very supinated, and it's also in flexion, is for disguise, so that the other player doesn't know that you're trying to slice. So I think a lot of players psychologically, they think they're thinking about slice, so they start turning their wrist early in the motion rather than getting that supination later, which you do. You get, looks like it becomes a little more neutral here. And you have a very good slice up into impact. But I think by curling that early, you show the opponent that you're going to slice, basically. Because rarely do you prepare like that and then, flatten the ball out. Usually doesn't work that way, in my experience. So try to get that wrist a little more neutral there. And you do a good job keeping the correct position as you're coming up to hit the good slice. Look how your eyes are up here. It's fantastic. This is a good upper body position. We talked about how sometimes you might be a little low here at the impact. Overall, this is a pretty good stretched, pretty good torso position. And the impact here, it's hard to see. The video's a little bit grainy. Could get a little better video. But I think this was a pretty good serve. Yeah, your wrist might be a little laid back here, so you might want just a touch of flexion or internal shoulder rotation to try to get the impact slightly forward. You always want forward impact for the slicer. And one of the issues here is you see that your lower body is not in such a good place, and we talked about that. You kind of stick your butt out this way a little bit. Your pelvis is going that way. So your upper body, your upper trunk looks good. The upper arm, the arm, on second glance here is maybe a little bent. I'd like to get a little straighter configuration there. And one of the big things I noticed is you don't have good long axis pronation, which is just a biomechanical term for like the pronation of the forearm and the rotation of the shoulder outward. You see how you come straight down in a straight line here? That's something I work on, especially with a lot of female players. A lot of female players do not get very good long axis pronation, and they don't maximize their internal shoulder rotation. Sometimes it's called ISR. A lot of female players don't maximize their ISR, and that is important for your power. The external rotation of the shoulder to internal rotation of the shoulder, which happens from here. Here's the max external shoulder angle. The point of maximum external shoulder rotation to internal shoulder rotation happens right through these movements, these frames, and that could be improved, and that would probably, I'm pretty sure that would add some miles per hour to your serve. So at this moment here, your wrist is, your palm is just basically facing straight forward after you hit the ball. So there's a small amount of pronation, a small amount of internal shoulder rotation, but not that much. And normally here you see the elbow higher. The elbow is usually a little higher. I have to show you a complementary clip side by side, and there's usually an angle you can see it in the elbow going down, and the racket's pointing more down, and the strings are pointing more out towards the camera. It's a little hard to see in this video, but from this angle, but you're basically coming straight through, which is straight through with kind of like a straight arm downward, and your arm is not rotating as much as it could, which could give you more power. Again, this might be a slice though, so the amount of pronation is maybe a little bit less on a slice serve. You still like to see a little bit better internal shoulder rotation. The elbow high. That's something we can work on. I'll talk to you about that when I see you. See how your arm comes straight down here? Typically this is bent here, like the elbow, the arm will look kind of like that, and look how your arm is completely straight, indicating a lack of maximizing, not maximizing your internal shoulder rotation. This is one thing we talked about, and this is pretty good split here in the legs. So you have this jackknife position here. You'd like your whole body to shift forward. You want your pelvis to shift this way, and this is one of the main things you worked on. You want your legs to drive you up and also in. So you don't want your legs to just go up. You want your legs to drive you up and in, and then you want to get a landing somewhere maybe in here or here. But look where your landing is. So you kind of go up, and then your body folds like a pocket knife, and then you just land basically exactly where you started. You can see that here, just landing where you started. This is positive with the hip extension. Your right hip's extending well, and you have the beginnings of a good split here. So that is a good body position. This landing position is excellent. Just overall, this whole position with your legs and your trunk is excellent. But the entire, this whole thing should be shifted forward. This whole thing should be forward by a couple feet. All right. So this position at the end is also excellent with the eyes. Look how level the head is. Look where the eyes are focused down the court. The head is level. That's really, you have really good posture, but that whole thing should be forward. Your body should be up and in. And one of the ways you can check that is really easy. Just make sure your left foot is over the line. Over the line this way. All right, so some good biomechanical things you can work on here, and I think you could really add 5, 10, maybe even 15 miles per hour to your serve, and you should also work on the skies here with the racket face. But I think your serve could be, much more optimized, which is actually a good thing. That means you can take your serve to a higher level as you go off to college. So I think that's actually a positive. Here I didn't notice this. Also, look how you have your pinpoint stance, which is fine. You bring your foot up, and then as you start to explode, look how your your pelvis rotates here. I don't know if you can see that. Look at your right hip. So look here at the right hip. Watch how that rotates early. And part of that rotation is your right knee collapses like that. That's not good. I didn't notice that even when we were working together. So watch out for that. You don't want these knees to collapse. So your pelvis is rotating early there. Your hips coming around early and your knees collapsing during the loading or during the exploding here. It starts in the loading and then during the exploding. You are also very early in the racket drop here, which is something we did discuss in class. The racket, you want to hold that racket up as you may remember. You want to hold this power position, this trophy position as long as you can. And then you want the legs to fire. This comes from the research of Dr. Brian Gordon, private research. You want the legs to fire and then the racket to go down. But your racket's going down early. Like, this is a very common issue, and it's a power leak. Racket goes down early, and the legs haven't even left the ground yet. Here, the racket's already on the way up. The racket's down, starting its way up, and you still haven't left the ground yet. Now you left the ground, and the racket's fully accelerating. But you'd like to leave the ground when the racket's still down here. So here, at this point where you're leaving the ground, the racket should still be down here somewhere, believe it or not, and it should be chasing the good extension that you have here in the legs. The racket should be chasing the legs, and instead your racket is leading. See how the racket's coming up, the arms coming up? It's actually pulling the legs up, and Dr. Ben Kibler calls that a pull type serve, which can put more stress on potentially more stress on the shoulder and abdominals. Yeah, this is a little low on the impact here. Look how you push through there. Interesting. All right, so there's actually a lot of stuff here to work on, a lot of interesting biomechanical things. So just wanted to send this over to you for review. You can look at it and watch yourself. That's a very, very good way to learn, and try to get out there with some balls and work on a few details. Always try to work with video so you can check your progress. Otherwise, you can go out there and hit 100 serves, and you can actually get worse. Play it in real time for you if you want to see real time. All right, thank you.